Hello friends, you're with the Lonesome Gamer, and today I'm gonna play 7 Ages. And this is now the first game of my new, historical playthrough series that I announced yesterday. And this is gonna be a big game. It covers basically the whole human history from the dawn of civilization till today, and it also covers the whole world. And it's not easy to play that solitaire. It is possible, but it takes a long time. That's basically the point, because if you play it in a multiplayer game, many things can be done simultaneously, and it still takes a very, very long time. But if you play that solitaire, it really takes many, many, many hours. I guess it will take me about weeks, maybe a month, maybe even longer, to do a complete solitaire playthrough here. But I want to do that, and I'm going to take my breaks. I'm going to do some other playthroughs in between. I'm going to come back to this then and simply continue. So don't expect every day a new video about that. I'm also going to do a turn which takes pretty long, and I'm going to summarize these turns then. So a video which is about, I don't know, 60 minutes or so might be an actual playing time of maybe 3 hours, something like that. But we're going to see about that. At the beginning I'm going to explain everything in detail, so there you will be, you will follow the playthrough step by step. Okay, let's set up the game now. Okay, so the game is set, and the setup isn't actually so bad. Basically what we see here is I play a 5-player game. So each player has a hand of 6 cards, and usually if you play multiplayer, the beginning is a little different. You get a hand of 7 cards, then you play a card, and the card with the highest value can decide which set of counter sheets they want. And these counter sheets are all a little different. Not terribly, but a little bit. So that can be an interesting decision, but the point is you will control lots of different empires throughout the game. So a counter sheet which might be very, very useful for one empire you control at the beginning, for example, might be not that great during the later game. So I think this is not so important. And in a solo game, I mean, it's I simply randomized it, and everybody has now its counter sheet and its counter set, and that's it then. In addition, we see a couple of leaders here. The deck, the rules, very important. And this is then the map of the world. You can see it's a huge map, and I think it looks pretty amazing. And down here we have the glory track, which is basically the victory point track. The goal of the game is to gain the most glory. And the game is over if the first empire either goes beyond number 49 here of the progress track, or if the first empire develops the internet. The progress track is divided in 7 rows, and they indicate the age in which each civilization is. And it's basically the technological advancement during the game. Here we have a sequence of play and these are some combat modifiers and some terrain values here. So the game plays in rounds, and each round is divided into 7 phases. And during each phase an action might be done. We got the start empire, the production, trade and progress action, we got the maneuver action, destiny, civilize or discard empire. And now each player has a counter sheet, and in this counter sheet there are these action markers, and you see here one action marker for each available action, and in addition each counter sheet also comes with a wild card. Each player can control in a 5-player game up to 3 empires at once. And now at the beginning of a turn you can place one of these action sheets on each of your empires. So each empire is exactly allowed to do a single action. And then, if you don't have all your 3 empires in play, so if you control less than 3 empires, you are allowed to play an additional action, and you do that by not placing this chit on the empire or on an empire, but simply on the table. And that also indicates that this action is not bound to an empire. So, for example, you cannot play let's say a production action on the table, because a production action always means that a specific empire will do a production action. What you could play on the table is, for example, a destiny action, which allows a player to discard as many of his hand cards as he wants, and then draw again up to his hand limit of 6 cards. That would be an action which is not bound to a specific empire, so you simply can play that. Another one would be the start empire action, which you can also play on the table, and then you can, in the turn, in the start empire phase, you can start a new empire. So now at the beginning of the game we are in the situation that no player controls an empire. So that means that basically each player can exactly play 1 action on the table, because he cannot play any actions on any empires. And there are right now only 2 interesting actions. The first one would be start an empire. The second interesting action would be to play a destiny action, because it is possible that you have only bad cards and that you want to change your hand somehow. So let's see what the first player has. A card comes in, shows 3 areas basically. Up here we have a civilization, in this case the champs. And And you can see here ages, they can be started in age 2 to 4. So at the very beginning we can only play an empire which starts in age 1. That's an optional rule. There is a theoretical option to play empires from a later age, right at the beginning, and that would then mean that you start the game at this later age. But I want to start at age 1 because yeah, simply more interesting that way. Okay, so I cannot play this. I cannot play this empire right now. The second area here on the card would be this green space here, Temple of Diana, and that is called an artifact. Although, well, it's not exactly an artifact, but in game terms it's called artifact. And usually you can play these artifacts in specific in specific ages. So the Temple of Diana could be played in age 1 or 2. So this is a card, we could play this artifact, but to do so we need to control an empire which could build the Temple of Diana then. And then here we also have an event. That's the last thing a card comes with. And many event cards or many events indicate when they can be played. An example here, play during Start Empire or Civilize. Some events do not indicate that, and that means you can only play them during the play artifact and event cards in the Civilize action. Okay, so short summarizing. 3 ways to play a card, either here for the empire or for the artifact, or down here for the event. And sometimes it's actually necessary to determine a random number, or or to play a number. And so this is technically the 4th way how you can play a card if you want to play a number. Okay. The second civilization would be the United States. Well, they can't also be played now in the first age, only from age 5 to 7. The Mughals, no way here, 4 to 6. The Zanga, 2 to 3. Okay. So until now we don't have anything. Here we have the Assyrians. Well, that looks more interesting now. Ages 2 and 1 if Sumerians in play. Okay. And, oh, look at that. That's a pretty cool start. The Sumerians themselves. So you can place them. You can play them here at age 1 and only in age 1. And then afterward he might actually think about playing the Assyrians. So he will now do a Start Empire action. And this player has chosen the gray counter mix. So let's see, here we are. This is our Start Empire action. And we place that now here on the table. And now let's go to the next player, and I'm gonna go on like this and check if players want to do a Start Empire action or if they want to do a Destiny action. Okay, so now we actually start the first turn, and we start with the first phase of the first turn, and that is the Start Empire phase. And now usually you play these chits upside down so that the other players don't see what you want to do, and then if we say, okay, now we come to the start empire phase, you flip the chit and say, okay, I want to start an empire. And usually we can do this simultaneously. Only if there's a conflict somewhere on the map, then of course we follow the turn order. And now this guy here has the first player marker, and this player marker will then move to the other players each turn. So now this guy will start an empire, and that means he wants to play the Sumerians. So let's see, it says here play empire card. Okay, so that's what we do. Choose color and place markers. Fine. We can now actually choose each counter set comes with two colors, a brighter one and a darker one. The darker one is usually stronger, has better combat values, but the brighter one has often more units. So in this case, it's not so easy to decide what we want. I have no idea. I'm simply going to roll a die. So on a 1 to 4, I'm going to take the darker one. Okay. So, and then I'm going to take a progress and money marker. And in this case, because it's the first civilization, the progress marker is placed here on space number 1. The money marker is placed in this case. Here you see the starting money on the right. So that's 15. So they got 15 bucks to begin with. So we place that here. Okay, fine. So that's choose color and place markers. Then it says promote named leader. Okay, let's see here. Here we see leaders, 2. So that means the Sumerians can control 2 leaders at the same time. And then we see here Sargon, 1, and that means they have a named leader in age 1, and that is Sargon. So that's what we can do now. We can find Sargon, and then let's see where we got him. These are all unnamed leaders. Okay, here he is, Sargon. And you can see there TA, that means he's a tactician. So that's a special ability. And basically that's useful in combat. Okay. And then we can build and set up units. Okay. So let's see. We got exactly 15 bucks right now. And for now, because our progress marker is at space 1, we can only build exactly these 2 units. Spear and a bowman or archer. Okay, so let's see. Here on that table, we can see the cost of the units. So we have here infantry, spears, and they cost 2. This one here behind that only indicates at which technological space this unit will be available. So 1 means it's available right at the first space, but it costs 2 gold, and the archers, a missile unit, they cost 3 gold. Okay. So usually it makes sense to kind of mix your units. why that's a good thing, I'm going to explain when it comes to the combat rules. And I wonder if there's anything special. Nah. Yeah, there is actually. Free 4 at setup. So usually we could also buy a 4, which would cost us 5. But right now we get that for free. Okay, let me see. Okay, so here we are. We got now 4 of these spear fighters and 2 archers. So that's 6 and that's 8. So that's 14. So we got 1 bug left now. And that's basically what we can get at the beginning with this counter set. That's more or less the maximum of counters that is available here. And now we can stack these. And during a multiplayer game, you don't have to show the other players what counters you have. You just stack them, and then it's kind of a fog of war, you know. And then you can see here, starting location is Mesopotamia. So we're going to place our starting troops here, all of them at Mesopotamia. In addition, we can take a fort. Okay, so here we have our fort, and as you can see, there are these numbers on top. Well, you don't need these numbers. They have basically no meaning for the gameplay. The problem is just that on the other side, all these chits are double-sided, and on the other side, you have kind of an artifact that can be played during ages 6 and 7. So in case now you're looking for an artifact during age 6 and 7, you can at least see from the other side, okay, it might be that one. So at the beginning of the game, it makes sense to use these chits that are used in the higher ages, because then we don't have to look on the back sides, at least not at the start. Okay. So there is now also fortification. So that was the build and set up unit step. And then, and then we come to resolve conflicts, but there are no conflicts. If we would have started in a country where another player already is, then there would be a conflict. And then finally we have here place capital and forts. So that means, well, officially now we could place the fort, and in addition we have a capital here, and that's more the Asian type of capital, but okay. And that thing has the size of 1. So we can place that here too. And there we go. That's the dawn of mankind in Mesopotamia, the Sumerians. Okay, now it's the pink player. And he's playing the Amazons. They start in the Caucasus, which is up there. Okay. And let's do the same thing again, this time off camera. Okay, I forgot last time to place Sargon here, the leader. And now here we have the Amazons. They have also capital, and they have also a leader, Xena. And she's also a tactician, so good in battle, but she's also a philosopher, which helps. I'm going to explain that later. It lets you basically gain glory points a little easier. Okay, then we got the yellow player, and he's also gonna start an empire. and he's actually gonna play the Pharaonic Egyptians. That's a pretty strong empire. They offer you a lot of ways to gain glory. So do the Sumerians. They also start with 15. They have a leader, Tutmosis III. Cleopatra can be only played in the Second Age, as you can see here. And, well, they start with 15 bucks in Egypt, of course. And that's basically it for now. Okay, the Egyptians, they also have a leader, Tutmosis, and he is a builder and a strategist. So a strategist basically allows you to move further with your troops, or at least simply to move them twice, even if you have a combat. And building, well, obviously that gives you advantages in constructing cities. Okay. So that was the yellow player's action. And now we come to the pink player, and this is going to be interesting because the pink player, he can either play the free state, and the free state allows you can start at any land area without leader or capital adjacent to a non-neutral area. Okay, so that means, and he can also convert units in the starting area. So he could basically start adjacent to any other country, if I read that right, to non-neutral area, exactly. But he could also wait and maybe find a country where there is where there are some troops, and then convert these troops right at the start. That would give him, of course, an advantage. The other option are the Nubians, Kushites Nubians. They start in Nubia, which is a problem because it is right next to Egypt. So there would be also a conflict coming up. Well, we could play that in a clever way. I had that actually in my session report that I did on my homepage. I had exactly the same situation. It's curious. I'm going to play the Nubians, and if the Egypt should attack me and if they should win, then I can start the free state and basically convert all the units from the Egypt, and then have a strong starting force in Nubia. So that looks like a fun idea. So I'm going to play these Nubians. Okay, but now we got the yellow player, and he says, no. I don't want these Nubians right next to me. They are much too dangerous for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the shooting star that says play when a player starts an empire. It doesn't start. Discard this card. Well, okay. And now actually the other player says, I'm going to play the bad augury, which says play when any event card is played. Discard the card. It has no effect. Well, okay then. And now we come to an interesting situation. We have this vizier here. And it says play any time to pick up the top card on the discard pile. So that's what the Egypt player now actually does. And we come to a really strange situation now, because he says, okay, I'm going to grab the bad augury then. And use that right away to cancel the bad augury. It is a little weird, and I wonder if it works, but I think it isn't possible. Actually, this card would probably then cancel the vizier, which makes no sense at all, because that was the last card that was played. So a bad augury cannot, you cannot use that same card. So this idea doesn't work, which is sad. So I think he keeps the vizier actually. And so these two cards then go away. The shooting star is cancelled by the bad augury. But now I wonder which cards goes to the discard pile first. I think actually the bad augury goes first to the discard pile and then the shooting star, because you play that card here to discard this card. And that would now allow the vizier to be played to pick up the top card and grab the shooting star, take it back. Because the shooting star is a very strong card, especially at the beginning where so many new empires are started. So I think he wants to keep that card and maybe use it then in a later turn. And that can save him now, because he might be able then to cancel the free state. Of course, he doesn't know that there is the free state, but the shooting star is strong anyway, so he simply does it, no matter if he knows that or not. Okay, so now I hope that wasn't too confusing. It ended up with a situation that the Kushite Nubians will enter play. Okay, as you can see, they don't have a named leader, the Nubians. So, well, they don't come with a leader. And they also have this symbol here, which says they are not allowed to build cities or fortresses before age 4. So that means they don't come with a capital. And they're called barbarian empire in game terms, if you're not allowed to build a city. Special 1 income per desert in production, count desert in harvest glory. Okay. And the last player then is the green player. And he doesn't have a good empire. He doesn't have an empire at all he can start. So what he's going to do is, he's going to do, well, nothing during this start empire phase. And then we come to the production phase, and again, nobody will produce because everybody already had his action except for the green player. Trade in progress, same thing. Maneuver, the same thing. Destiny. And this is now what the green player has chosen to do. He will now flip his chit and play a destiny action. So that allows him to throw away whatever cards he wants and to keep the one he finds interesting, and then draw up to his hand limit. And he's going to throw away these 4 cards. The other 2 cards might give him a chance later. There is the Aryans, H2, and 1 if Harappans are in play. So that is an option maybe. And the Hellenic Greeks, H2, and 1 if Minoans are in play. So maybe he can use these cards. He doesn't know what the other players will start in the next turns. And then he's going to draw 4 new cards. Let's see what we find. The Khmers, well, he cannot play them. The Incas, also cannot play these guys. The Mauryans Guptas, they can't also be played now. Damn it. The Han. Okay, so he wasn't lucky. He still has no... he still hasn't drawn any empire that he can play in the first age. So, seems like if he's not very lucky, he will be forced to do another destiny action in the next turn and hope for some better cards. Okay, so that was the destiny phase, and then we got the civilized phase and the discard empire phase, but no one else does an action in these phases because they were all allowed to do only 1 action. And now at the very end, it says here, all empires now progress unless in a dark age, and then harvest glory. Okay, so that's what happened. We have these special spaces here. These are dark ages, and you cannot progress from these dark ages automatically. But if you're not in a dark age, you automatically progress at the end of each turn. Well, actually not always, but let's not start with the exceptions right now. Okay, they all progress 1 step, and then they harvest glory. So let's see what we can do now. Okay, let's start here with the Sumerians. They are the first player. And now these symbols here, they indicate what you gain glory for. So the first symbol shows if you control your home area, then you gain 1 glory point. That's what is the case. So we can give the gray player his first glory point. Then we see here Asia. So that means you want to be first in Asia, and that is also the case because he's the only civilization in Asia. The boundaries are here, so that means the Amazons, they are in Europe. So that then gives them another glory point. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, that shows they want to be the most progressed empire in the world. But as you can see here, and that if they were number 1, they would gain 2 victory points for that, or 2 glory points, because there's a 2. But we're now all at the same level of progress. So usually what happens then is that we follow the turn order. So the first player would be number 1 in progress, second player, if it's still tied, would be number 2, and so on. So technically he would be now the first player in progress and would gain 2 victory points for that. But now there is here Xena, and she's a philosopher. And that's a special ability, because if you're a philosopher, that means this empire will always win when it comes to harvest glory on a tie. So that means that not the Sumerians are the first in progress, but the Amazons. But now there's another point. Because there's a 2, that means they would gain 2 points if they are first in progress, but they still gain 1 point if they are second. If there would be a 3, then they would gain 3 points if they are first, 2 points if they are second, 1 point if they are third. So overall, means now the Amazons are first in progress because they have the philosopher. The Sumerians are second in progress because they are the first player. Then the Egyptians would be third, and the Nubians would be last, following the turn order. So that means now that the Sumerians would gain another glory point. And finally, this means that they gain a glory point if they control the most wheat in the world. So right now there are 2 empires that control exactly 1 wheat, the Sumerians, and also here, you can see it there, the Egypt. But because he's first player, he gets that point for controlling the most wheat. So that means he now generated 4 glory points, which is really, really a lot. Okay, now let's see, the Amazons. Well, they control their home country. That gives them a point. Then they want to be number 1 in the world. That would give them 2 points. If they were number 2 in the world, they would still gain 1 point. But because they have this philosopher, which always breaks ties, they are actually number 1 in the world, although all 4 are control only 1 area. So they will gain 2 points for that, and they're number 1 in progress because of the philosopher. So that means they will also gain 4 glory points. And that is really strong. That is basically the maximum they can generate. Let's see about the pharaonic Egyptians. Okay, they control their home country. That's a fact. So that gives them 1 point. There we are. Then they are number 1 in Africa. Well, they are basically the same size as the Nubians, but because they are earlier in turn order, they are number 1, and that gives them another glory point. In the world, well, they would gain a glory point. They would still gain a glory point if they would be number 2 in the world. But that's not the case. Number 1 are the Amazons because of the philosopher. Number 2 are the Sumerians. Even though they don't get points for being number 2 in the world, they still count as number 2 in the world because of the turn order. So the Egyptians would be only number 3 in the world, which doesn't give them any points. And that one here means they would gain points if they had the most artifacts in the world, but they don't have any artifacts at all, and that means you won't get any points for that. So overall they only gain 2 points. And finally we have here the Nubians. They gain a point for controlling their home country. They are not number 1 in Africa. These are the Egyptians, and they are also not among the first 2 players in the world. So that means they only gain 1 glory point. Okay, well, that is then the end of the first turn. And you can see we have actually kind of an interesting start. Especially between these two. I'm afraid we're going to see a clash pretty soon. At the very beginning, I made a, well, kind of a simple profile of each player to make decisions a little more easier when playing. And I kind of simply rolled if the player has a more aggressive character or a more standard character, you know, or if he's more conservative, more peaceful. And I ended up with the gray player as a kind of a standard player. The pink one, this lady here, is pretty aggressive. The yellow player is also an aggressive player, and the red player is also a standard player. And so would be the green player, which is not even on the board right now. But that means it's pretty sure that this guy here will try and attack right at the beginning. It is a little bit risky, but I think he might try to do that. We'll see about that. Okay, so yeah, hope to see you in my next video or on lonesomegamer.com. Until then, bye. Okay, well, actually I decided to do something. In solitaire play, this is something you will see more often in this play, that a player throws in a card maybe a little late or so, but it says here, play at the start of the harvest glory. All target empires' glory numbers doubled. So it says here, the US's world number above would be 4. So you see here, would be 4. So that's kind of interesting for the Sumerian player, because it would give him more points for being number 1, for being number 2 in progress. It would give him an additional point for having the most wheat, for being number 1 in Asia, and so on. So overall, I think, I mean, they all gain more points, but I think that he will be pretty much in the advantage here. And I'm going to check that out. I mean, they don't get all their double points, but the numbers are doubled. And that changes things a little bit. So let's see. Okay, so I checked again my cards. And now I realized, or the green player, the only player who doesn't have an empire in play until now, he says, oh no, that's a pretty bad idea. If they all double their glory now, or double their glory points, then he would be the only one who doesn't have any advantage. So he says, I play the bad augury, play when any event card is played, discard the card, it hasn't any effect. Okay. So that means the expanded glory is cancelled, and it stays the way it was before.